Alright, Bible Doctrine 1, Lecture 23, Part C. We are finishing now. Hallelujah. And we're stopped on off at one of my favorite topics, neurotheology. See that one? Neurotheology, all these names. I'm not going to go over the other ones that we did, but just know they're red. There's a couple of them that you got to kind of look at. There's going to be a different on a test. I think there's one on pantheism and the other one that's like that, panentheism. Know the difference there. It's a subtle one, so I think I just tried to be hard there. Neurotheology, also known as spiritual neuroscience. This makes sense though. Let's look at this. In a way it makes sense. Is the study of correlations or relationships of neural phenomena, nerve-related phenomena, with subjective experiences of spirituality and hypotheses to explain these phenomena. So if you are a non-believer, don't believe in God, and people are having these encounters with God, they're saying, like you know, if you told someone about your testimony, how God speaks to you and these things, and you're a scientist, you'd be going, so nerve-wise, what's going on in the brain? Psychiatrists are this way with religion, unless they believe in the paranormal, the supernatural, then they will they'll come up with these things. They came up with neurotheology. It's a real thing. And that's how I would explain it if I didn't believe in God. There's a phenomenon going on with the nerves in the brain and just past experiences and what they read in literature, and they kind of come up with these experiences they have. But it's not real. It's real for them, but it's not a real supernatural encounter, they would say. Proponents of neurotheology claim that there is a neurological and evolutionary basis for subjective experiences traditionally categorized as spiritual or religious. I wouldn't know it was evolutionary, I guess, process over time. Suggestions have been made that an increase of course, in dimethyltryptamine. That is what? Tryptamine is a form of an amino acid, of course you know that. Methyl is a methyl group. What is that? That's a CH-O-H? Methyl is a C1. And then it's the nitrogen's hooked onto that, and it's a dimethyl, so there's two methyl groups with the nitrogen. Is that right? Who's taking organic chemistry here? Come on, guys. No, I might be wrong on that. The N, I think, is a nitro group. I'm not sure. Anyways, that thing in the pineal gland, or stimulation of the temporal lobe by psychoactive ingredients of magic mushrooms. Where did that come? Well, let me read this again. Suggestions have been made that an increase of that substance in the pineal gland or stimulation of the temporal lobe by psychoactive ingredients of magic mushrooms mimics religious experiences. I don't know where they got magic mushrooms from. All blue here, but I don't know how many people that have religious experiences have been messing with magic mushrooms, but maybe it happens. This is the key thing to know, because it's in red. It surmises that spirituality can be explained physiologically, scientifically, as they say. It's interesting. Have you ever watched someone pray? You ever seen someone pray? Obviously you have.
Yeah.
You've seen people pray. So if you were a non-believer, didn't believe in all that stuff at all, you're just looking at them and what's going on there? First of all, you might think, is there really a God, or is there some supernatural phenomenon going here? Or is it just them going through this process and they're basically talking to themselves, pretending like they think they're talking to someone else, but they're not hearing anything back, which is true. Because you're not, unless you're a charismatic. You could hear things back through a devil, I suppose. But the Lord God Almighty, now in this dispensation, I don't believe is talking back to us. Deism. This is probably one of the more important ones to know. Is born out of the 18th century Enlightenment or Age of Reason, and deism believes that God exists, but not as a personal God. It's a real God, but you can't get to know Him. It holds that God is present in His creation, but only via His power, not in His being and nature. So I don't like these explanations because that's not what deism is. I'll go on here and read, but I don't like what it says. He's the only power out there. There's no person to know. Well, deism, as I understand it, there is a person. There is the creating God, not a force, but a being. But He's detached from his creation. He did it, started creation off, and then just through evolution and all, it went on. And he's off doing something else. That's really what it gets down to, is my understanding of deism. But know that there's no, what it says here, no person to know for possible test purposes. I did this 6 years ago. I'm not going to change it because I got this from, wherever I got it from. Wikipedia. It's got to be right. I always say that, but Wikipedia is usually pretty accurate on the bigger subjects. Deism denies the need for or possibility of special revelation, holding that man's reasoning, thinking power is sufficient to know there is a higher being. So that's good. Man can figure out that there's a higher being, but we can't know him. There's no possibility of it. Deism believes that God is separate from his creation and is just not involved. So that's a key one to know. I think if there's a test question, it's going to be dealing with that one. When our country was founded, there were some famous deists that were in it. I think Thomas Jefferson was one. Benjamin Franklin might have been one. There's a couple of them that we've heard of that were deists. Deism is a step in the right direction. At least acknowledging there's a God, creator God out there that started something. So that's good. Dualism. This concept holds that there are two distinct and irreducible principles. Good, which they will call God, and evil, which they can term Satan. It not only teaches that both God and Satan are co-eternal, but also that God is finite. So this is one of those that's not in the actual being God and actual being Satan person type. It's just a force, a reality. There's good and there's evil. The good we'll call God. It is a yin-yang philosophy. Persian Zoroastrianism is a form of dualism, as was the ancient Eastern religion of Manichaeanism. Boy, that's not in red, so just let that fly by, I suppose. But Zoroastrianism is out there. It's a fairly large religion of the minor religions. The Gnostic sects of early Christendom were also dualistic. But you've heard of yin-yang. You've seen the symbol for that, the white. It looks like a tadpole to me, and then the black kind of mixed together there. So this kind of a, it's not karma, but these forces kind of, it's all trying to get the yin-yang and the universe in balance is the goal. Mystical theology comprises among its subjects all extraordinary forms of prayer, the higher forms of contemplation, and all the varieties of graduations, private revelations, visions, so like New Age movement, and the union growing out of these between God and the soul, known as the mystical union. So this kind of arbitrary collection of all these types of experiences with what they call God and the spiritual world. Just the mystic, people are called mystics. They're into the supernatural. It is a science of all that is extraordinary in the relations between the divinity, whatever that is, undefined, and the human spirit. It comes from the Catholics, though, mysticism, which comes from paganism, which comes from Satanism. Arianism, excuse me, Arianism. The Aryan concept of Christ. So Arianism isn't necessarily white supremacy, as some people think. But it deals with that. I don't know much about it, actually, but I got out of that a long time ago.
Well.
I'm from Iowa, where a lot of these people are, I guess, hiding out. No, Arianism isn't necessarily that. Let's read what it says. The Aryan concept of Christ is that the Son of God did not always exist, but was created by and is therefore distinct from and inferior to God the Father. See? So it doesn't really deal with color of skin issues, though you'd have to study Arianism, and I think it's spelled differently. Do you know, brother?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, you're white. You should know these things. I'm kidding. Well, I can have fun with white people. I just have to, others I'll be careful on, but white folk I can kid around with. I think it is spelled differently, and it's a whole different term. Because this has nothing to do, this one, with, we'll say, race. And that issue. It's dealing with what? That Jesus Christ is a created being. Let's go on. A Christian movement. Oh, does it come up here? No. See those people standing there? They may come to your door someday. They're Jehovah's false witnesses. They look nice. In fact, I used to dress that way when I went to the door, as a going door to door with my church, suit and tie. Wear a suit and tie when you go out. And then we got to thinking, and eventually we said, well, let's not do the suit. That's a little maybe too much, plus it's hot sometimes. I don't want to look like a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness. Don't carry pouches and bags and all that. But people don't really know all that intricate. They just see someone in a suit and tie, dressed real nice, whatever they are, female, dressed real nice, and they wonder. The Christian movement reputed to practice a form of Arianism, or Jehovah's Witnesses. They consider Jesus Christ to be divine and unlike other created beings, but not equal to the one God. So when it really gets down to it, he was created. He's not eternally existing in the past. He's superior to all other created beings. And it's called God with a small g, a God. However, they consider Jesus Christ to be divine. I read that, sorry. However, they disagree with Arius' views in many respects. For example, they deny that the Son could really know the Father. That's what Arianism did. While Jehovah's Witnesses believe that the Son fully knows the Father. So there's a difference. But it's just how these false beliefs kind of trickle into other belief systems. That's what you have to watch out for. Catholicism has a lot of that. And so does general Christianity. These beliefs might not be full-blown what they believed back then, but there's little bits of it, pieces you got to watch out for. Naturalism. This view states that everything in the universe is governed by the laws of nature, and that man's happiness depends on his cooperating with these laws. Everything that happens is controlled by the laws of nature, like Mother Nature. No, how does that go? Don't fool with Mother Nature. That old commercial? Okay. So, there are laws of nature. They do govern us. But God is above all that and enters into that. And actually, devils can too. Alter things. A devil can cause a storm. Cause interesting things. And in the very end times, it's going to cause fire to come down from the heavens, space. It keeps going on. All these different beliefs, little ways to define it. But some of these we're getting some pretty big ones here, sorry. We ate some good Kentucky Fried Chicken Go Cups. We didn't eat the cup, actually, but it was, I was just looking at your drink there, sorry. I thought that was a Mountain Dew spiked lemonade.
Weird.
Because I had those this past week. I don't know what I was talking about, that just took me back. Fatalism. This view states that everything is determined by fate. Fate will have it. Fatalists may call fate God, as does Islam, actually. But such a God is arbitrary, non-moral, and impersonal. It's kind of like in the field of luck. It's just a way of saying however things go. If you believe in karma or God, you just kind of throw that all in there. It's kind of dealing with fate. This is the way things are going to turn out, my destiny. I think most people don't actually think there's any significant actions in there. It's just the way things are going to go. I'm lucky. You really think there's luck out there? Well, how does that all work? Who controls the luck? Who gives out the luck? And no, I'm just lucky. It's the way my luck, as luck would have it. Chance. What they mean by it is chance. Fate often is linked to destiny. It is a concept based on a belief that there is a fixed natural order to the cosmos. There's also luck, a superstitious chance happening, a more mystical version of fate. Well, fatalism teaches that free will does not exist, meaning therefore that history has progressed in the only manner possible, and that man has no power to influence the future or indeed his own actions. This is like predeterminism. Anyways, they're taking, in a way, taking God out of the picture. They're just saying the cosmos, the universe, is set up and it's just going to run a certain way from some type of, however they define what controls all that. Which is pretty complicated, I suppose. But they come up with something. Different people, different things. That's fate. And there's nothing you can do to change things. It might be that fate, in their view, would be that man is all going to kill themselves, like some of these movies that are out there, all to the very, very end, and there's just machines controlling it. Maybe that's what they believe fate is going to bring about. Just the natural order of things are going to come that way. But you can put in your own views on what controls fate. Like there's a God or some divinity, some force out there. So don't say fate. Most of us don't say fate because it's just an old word, but luck, we say. I'm feeling lucky today. Man, I'm lucky. Look what happened. Okay, you can just say, well, chance would have it, just the law of average, or statistically speaking, I'm doing better than most people. Or you can say, if you think it's true, the Lord has blessed me. The Lord has helped me. Or I just did it myself. I worked real hard. Liberation theology. There's some good friends of ours. You can tell this was put back together a while ago. It's like having a picture there of, like, I don't know, Dwight Eisenhower. So old. But liberation theology is a Christian movement in political theology which interprets the teachings of Jesus Christ in terms of a liberation from unjust economic, political, or social conditions. So liberation theology, which is a real system out there. It's not just, I mean, it's not necessarily colored type churches like Hispanic, white, or black that would have it. It's just people that are under bondage. It might be real bondage too. It's not just in America. It's another, like South Africa, real big. The term was coined in 1971 by the, Peruvian priest, Gustavo Gutierrez, who wrote one of the movement's most famous books, A Theology of Liberation. So he's Peruvian. So it can be a lot of different groups. I think it mostly identifies, though, with the color of your skin, your kind of ethnicity, and oppression from another ethnicity upon you, though it doesn't have to be that, but that's the most common. And the most common in America known is black liberation theology, sometimes shortened to black theology. This is from Wikipedia. Is a relatively new theological perspective found in some Christian churches in the United States. It maintains that African Americans must be liberated from multiple forms of bondage, political, social, economic, and religious. And surely in the history of African Americans, I don't know it real well, but, and I'm white of course, but I can see that as happening over those, I don't know, the mid-1800s to mid-1900s, I don't know, somewhere in there. 100 years or so, maybe longer, I don't know. Not good with history of that. Of course, there's other groups that have had that. There's Polish people in our country and others in America, and other countries have this too. And so they, in a way, use Christianity to help liberate them, or they're that plus some other things. But I don't understand it well, really I don't. I've read it before and it's complicated. This formulation views Christian theology as a theology of liberation, salvation. The Jews, they saw salvation mainly as being freed from bondage from their enemies, which many times that's what it was talking about. But ultimately salvation deals with salvation of one's eternal soul from hell, saved from that so you can live in heaven with Jesus forever. So in that picture of salvation, which you can look at other things, but that's not what Jesus Christ's death on the cross is about. But God can liberate like the Jews he did. So they take that, which is something to think about at least. James Cone first addressed his theology after Malcolm X's proclamation in the 1950s against Christianity being taught as a white man's religion. Trinity United Church of Christ, Chicago, is the church most frequently cited by press accounts as the best example of a church formally founded on the vision of black liberation theology. So it really doesn't go into it much here, and that's all, and I don't really want to. 2008 Jeremiah Wright controversy, so that's back a ways. You don't have to know all that. If you saw the news there, you got a little taste of what it might be dealing with. I don't know. I would say this on that, some of it is reasonable, like anything, and some of it's probably very unreasonable. Some of it probably is scriptural, got verses to support it, and then it can become extreme. But that's not what Christianity is about. Necessarily liberating people groups, though that can happen. It's liberating a person from bondage of sin, control of the devil. Society, yes, there's issues there, but Christianity it affects society, but it's really about the person. And we're going to have unjust things going on. So, liberation theology. Then there's I don't know how to even say it. Theology? Theology is a discourse that reflects upon the meaning of goddess and her relationship to life forms. Have you ever seen a bumper sticker with the term goddess on it? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, don't look at bumper stickers in general, but I've seen them. I would try not to read them though, because most of them say something that ain't good. Well, anyways, it is so something about goddess. It is a discourse that critically engages the past and contemporary goddess community's beliefs, wisdom, embodied practices, questions, and values. So if you hadn't guessed already, the term suggests a feminist approach to theism and the context of God and gender within the context of neo-paganism. Theology increasingly appeared in feminist literature associated with the neo-pagan goddess movement during the 1980s and 1990s. Wicca deals with this. Most of Wiccans are females, but not all of them. So, just know theology with the A. It's more of a feminist approach, and it deals pretty close with Wiccanism. Witches. Feminist theology is basically similar to that, though it's not necessarily neo-pagan. It's a movement found in several religions, including Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, New Thought. It is given to reconsidering the traditions, practices, scriptures, and theologies of those religions from a feminist perspective. So what version, so-called version of the Bible have they come out with in recent years that is right from this? It's a version of the NIV called the TNIV. Today's New International Perversion. That was back, I forget the year, it's past 2000 though, I believe. And so that was an attempt to somewhat subtly replace male pronoun terms, especially dealing with God, with female pronoun terms. They actually, I think we covered this sometime recently, a Bible version that has replaced it all. And Jesus is known as, starts with a J. Think of a female's name, old-time name. Jenna, no. Judith. Judith. It's not Jesus, it's Judith. Yeah. And they're serious about it. So, and they replaced all the male pronoun to she's. So, you say, well, that's ridiculous. Well, with Bible versions today, you can do about anything you want to do. And people, if they buy it, you got it. It's a way to make money and influence people's thought. That's why we, as far as I understand here, and maybe many of you online students, we say, hold on a second. You can't just do what you want to do with the Word of God. So that's why translation and studying that out, believing that God can and did preserve His Word for people, and then trying to figure out if it's in your language, what do you have available? Is that it? Well, that's what I've done, you've done. King James Version in English. It's not the only Bible out there that's correct. There's other languages that have it correct, of course. Feminist theologians have supported the use of non- or multi-gendered language for God, arguing that language powerfully impacts belief about the behavior and essence of God, and also about how people feel about females. Yeah. Christian feminists believe that God does not discriminate on the basis of biologically determined characteristics such as gender and race. Their major issues include the ordination, there we go, this is what it's getting down to, ordination of women. They're against male dominance in Christian marriage, the recognition of equal spiritual and moral abilities, reproductive rights, abortion, there we go, and the search for a feminine or gender transcendent divine, meaning there's a female God out there. That's what that picture is about, in search of a female God. Yeah. And then exotheology, well, this is my favorite. Oh, I'm sorry, that picture has to do with this. It's just on the other page. This picture, I was like, why did I put that picture there for feminists? That goes with this one. It's a term that was coined in the 60s or 70s for the examination of theological issues as they pertain to extraterrestrial intelligence. So last night, my almost least favorite radio show, we're driving in the car back from Austin at 1 in the morning. And there's not much on. And there's Art Bell. You ever heard of him? So this guy, it's nationally, it's out there. It's usually late at night. And it's all about, all they talk about is this stuff, extraterrestrials. I listened for like 30 seconds. I wasn't sure what station I had. It sounded like news, and he goes, yes, but sometimes we're not sure, but there's a good scientific chance that these aliens have 3 digits per hand. Not the normal 5 we see with humans. It's talking about 3-digit aliens. And he says, we think we have proof of this. So he's involved with exotheology. It is primarily concerned with either conjecture, about possible theological beliefs that extraterrestrials might have, or how our own theologies have been or will be influenced by evidence, and back it up. So you see what that says there? It's concerned about the theological beliefs that extraterrestrials might have. I wonder what extraterrestrials believe in, or what their religions. I mean, how many people think about that? That's going pretty deep. I wonder how their societies function and if they have stores and things. Okay. A Christian writer early to address the question was C.S. Lewis, who in the 1950s article in the Christian Herald contemplated the possibility of the Son of God incarnating in other extraterrestrial worlds, or that God could devise an entirely distinct plan of salvation for extraterrestrial communities. I mean, it's okay to ponder that thought if you're high on hallucinogens. No, there's a lot. It's just like most people. You look out there and you understand there's planets out there, and it goes on and on and on for who knows how far. That you would think there'd be another planet that could have life, right? You could think that. Just by, even if you're thinking evolutionary, there should be a whole bunch of them, different levels of having life. So that's not the case. We don't see that. And we'll finish now, but I'll leave you this one. First of all, nowhere in the Bible does it say there's not life anywhere else. We know there is life elsewhere. There's God and the angelic world. But as far as on planets, and I don't think there is. There's no other form of salvation. So if there is, it's all through Jesus Christ. All the Bible speaks about is this earth. Now someone could say, well, this is a book for earth people. Maybe God has another one of these for Zenon or whoever else it is. But there's nowhere in the Bible that says that it's okay to think about that a little bit. Just don't go following some group that's teaching that. I wouldn't. Let's look at the Bible. That's what we're supposed to do. We're earthlings. That's what we're going to go by. Now, eternity future, that dispensation. God recreates everything. We'll say it's done the same way. But you have a finite space, but there's a lot out there. My thought pattern was this. So we're going to be here with God, awesome, with the new earth, New Jerusalem, that's what we got, for eternity, which lasts a pretty long time. There's all this out there. Is that just there? We can only see just little specks of it, and beyond that, probably 99.999% of it we can't see if our eyes are the same. So what's that? Why is all that there? It's creation. God created it. I believe we'll be able to at least explore it. But if it's all a bunch of cold, ice-covered, or on-fire planets, what's the point? So, with sin, the curse of sin gone, a thought is, not Mormonism where we go have kids on other planets, but, let me add one other thing. This is a crazy thought here, and I haven't researched this out. But the folks that are in the millennial kingdom, they're procreating, right? They're having kids in the millennial kingdom, because they are. The ones that come to translate over from the end of the tribulation on into the millennium. Maybe you haven't thought this out yet, but they can have kids, and these children and the descendants of those will rise up at the end and join Satan and fight. But anyways, those that are still alive and trust in Jesus Christ, do they get supernatural bodies going into eternity future? There's the end of the millennium, where Satan, fire comes down and destroys the enemies of God. There's still people that have the capabilities of procreating. It doesn't say that they're changed there, that I know of, specifically. So what happens if they can still continue to procreate? I know there's a lot of problems with that. Now, I'm not saying I believe in that, but eventually you're going to need these other planets as the trillions and trillions of years go by. Brother Bo's going. Honey, guess he's talking to his wife now. Honey, you would not believe what that crazy man said. I don't believe it, but I've entertained it for that much time. We'll see you later.